All right, JoeyRitter.com, on Twitter at Joey Ritter. Excited about my guest today. I've got Nicole Brewer, reporter for CBS3, Eyewitness News, Philadelphia, former Miss Pennsylvania, and former Marple Newtown Tiger.
Yes,
Okay?
the latter most important, right?
Exactly. Now, before we begin, at the top, I got to mention, back in the day when we were in high school and they installed those television sets in the classroom, all the classrooms,
Yes.
that was a big deal back then. And you probably don't remember this, but just pretend like you do. We were actually part of the first news crew that read the morning announcements.
Yes,
Right.
I absolutely remember that.
Okay.
But we read it off of paper, right?
I don't
Have a
even
fancy
remember.
teleprompter or anything like that.
No, we didn't have a teleprompter. I know that. Yeah. We did read it off paper, so we were constantly looking down. So
Right.
yeah. So
It's very engaging stuff.
Right. So what happens after that? You go to college, you become Miss Pennsylvania, and now you're reporting for the fourth largest market in the United States of America. I go on to college, I play in some above average rock bands, and now I just interview people in my basement, It just works out that way. But we're here together, and I know how busy you are, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. So as a news reporter, please take me through a typical day at work, starting from when you get up.
Well, most people are shocked to hear that I actually wake up at about 2 in the morning. So it starts out, I know, every morning, super early. I usually get into the station about 2:45. So just kind of drag myself in, very minimal hair and makeup, kind of just do everything on the go. Once I get in, I basically check with my producers, kind of get today's assignment. And from there, just start, building it up to what you see on TV. So basically, I go through the last reports that were either given on air or written up on our website.
Okay.
From there, I kind of check with any sources I might have, any authorities, on the topic. Then I get all my video, I log all the interviews, and kind of begin writing that story. Now, I have roughly about 2 hours from the time I get in to when I'm on air. So I'm doing all of this, handing it off to an editor who then, puts the piece together, and then I'm in front of the camera, basically, by 5 o'clock in the morning. So it's very run and gun, kind of crazy. And from there, our show goes till 9, so I'm roughly on the air about 8 times throughout those 4 hours, and then it's just sort of a roll of the dice as to whether or not I get assigned a different story once we get off the air.
Wow. I mean, I don't care how much you like your job. 2 a.m. wake-up call is, I don't know if I could ever get used to that.
I still have it, so probably not.
So you kind of alluded to this before, but so when you walk out of the house, like, are you do your own hair and makeup, or do you walk out in like sweatpants and just enough to walk around in public, and then they take care of you at the station?
No, everything is done on my own. So I basically lay out my entire outfit that night before, down to socks and underwear. I mean, I'm taking no chances in the morning, because if I do, I'm basically getting dressed in the dark, kind of fumbling all over my apartment. So I have things set and ready to go. I don't really put on a lot of makeup before I get into the station. And to be completely honest, I do it in the car most of the time. So a lot of times by the time the sun rises, I'm like, good God, what was I thinking for the last, 2 hours or whatever.
Right. And this is every day. I mean, it's hard enough for me to do one interview a week, and you've got to just keep the stories coming every day. News is 24 hours, just so much more.
It never stops. Yeah, that's for sure. And I do want to clarify, I don't do my makeup in my own car while I'm driving.
Okay.
I do it in the news van when the photographer is in the driver's seat.
Gotcha.
Just very clear about that.
Gotcha. So how did your journalism career get started?
Well, ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a reporter. I was always fascinated by TV. I actually grew up watching some of the morning news network programs. And, I was obviously a big fan of Oprah. Everybody is. And from there, I don't know. I always loved to write. I always loved sort of presenting a story and getting involved in that story and interviewing people and learning about them. So it was really a natural fit for me. When I got to college, I knew exactly what I wanted to major in, which was speech communication and broadcasting. Went through that whole program, did some internships, and then upon graduation, I really knew it was just about making those contacts, getting kind of lucky, and then from there, basically working my butt off to keep my job.
Right. So when you look back at when you first started, what are we talking, 6 years ago? kind of thing, or?
Let's see. So I got started in '06. So yeah, about 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you look at footage from 2006, do you think like, oh, I was horrible, or you kind of okay with it?
I have to say it goes back even before that. The first time I was on News 99, which was my campus cable station, I just remember watching that tape some years later, and I looked like a ghost, hands folded on the desk, just scared out of my mind. So it sort of makes me feel good to think, I've come a long way since then,
Right.
and as everybody does. But yeah, it just takes time. The more you're in front of the camera, the more comfortable you are, and I think experience just gives you confidence.
Right. I think your Twitter followers definitely want to see that footage from 2006. Just saying.
I bet they would. They never will.
So did you have any specific reporters that you looked up to back in the day? Or people you tried to model yourself after?
Yeah, I have to say, I mentioned already I watched a lot of network morning news shows. So some of those anchors on there, I guess, who I grew up watching. But really for me, when it kind of kicked in and started to make sense was when I did those internships and I actually got to see people doing the job day in and day out.
Okay.
And so it was more local personalities that I kind of modeled myself after. I interned at WGAL in Lancaster, and I had very good reporters and anchors there, Meredith Jorgensen, Kim Lemon, fantastic people who really showed me what does it actually take to get on television and look good and produce a good product. And then even my early days at CBS 3, I watched the people around me. Yuki Washington is a great friend of mine, a great mentor, and just seeing him in the studio, seeing him interact, put people at ease,
Sure.
during an interview. That was a great learning experience.
Sure. Now, Philadelphia is obviously your hometown market. Was it always the goal to end up here, or did just things kind of fall in place that way?
It really, things just sort of fell into place. I always knew that I didn't want to go too far from home, but I also knew that I might have to. So It was one of those things where it would be nice to stay, but I didn't bank on it. And I still don't. Just because you make it to market number 4 certainly doesn't mean you're going to stay there for the duration of your career. So I have not ruled out the possibility of not working in my hometown for my entire career, but I have to say it would be very nice, to be a Yuki Washington or a Pat Shiraki
Sure.
at Channel 3.
Yeah. When you're at like social gatherings, like a party or a wedding, do you, find yourself talking in the reporter voice? Is that something you can turn on and off?
Everybody always asks about the reporter voice. I feel like when I'm in certain situations, usually in a professional situation, my reporter voice comes out.
Right.
But when I'm with friends, they totally make fun of me for it. They say that it's a total on switch.
Oh, yeah.
Completely different. I don't notice it that much, but I'm told about it constantly.
Okay. So, so when you first started with the station, you were kind of online social media girl, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in regards to social media, is that almost as important as the actual broadcast itself these days?
You mean in terms of approaching viewers online in a digital media sense?
What I mean is like 4 years ago, okay, Facebook, Twitter existed, but nowhere near to the importance it is now.
Oh,
and
yeah,
when you see Yuki Washington, when you see yourself, you have, your Twitter name at the bottom there of the screen. So obviously, when you guys are off air, you want to stay connected with, the people that watch the station. So I guess I just, how much more important is social media now than when you first started?
Oh, exponentially greater. It's when I started, nobody had Facebook or Twitter pages. It really wasn't part of the fabric of a local newscast, and I felt very fortunate that they hired me, in a sense, for a role that allowed me to introduce that not only through my own position, but introduce it to the station as a whole. So I was really one of the first ones that had a Facebook page and a Twitter following, and kind of, I think, I like to think that in a way I helped to spearhead that movement, at least at that station. When I got in, like I said, social media was pretty much brand new in terms of a way to deliver the news. We had CBS3.com at the time, which was our way of going digital, and very important. But then when we relaunched CBSPhilly.com, it really became that much more important for CBS Philly to have a Twitter page and a Facebook presence.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very important part of what we do. I mean, ultimately it comes back to who watches us on television, but I mean, there's no denying that clicks on our website, you know, they're also part of our business strategy and part of getting that message out. So, you know, whether it's CBS3 on television, CBSPhilly.com, or even our app now. It's called Your Day, and you can download it for your smartphone. That's the way people are getting their news, and myself included. So it's extremely important for us to not only have access to those types of digital media, but to also reinforce that by connecting with viewers through, say, Facebook or Twitter.
Right, because, I mean, look, I'm not giving any away secrets here when, you know, it's like 10:40 and they say, okay, we'll tell you about the weather at 11 o'clock, and you're like, okay, well, I got my phone next to me. I'll just find out what the weather is now. Thank you very much. So, so
hopefully you'll do that through CBS Philly.
Sure I do. So, you know, in your profession, you've got to have thick skin, okay? One day you're saying an 89-year-old woman was stabbed, you know, the day before her 90th birthday, and then when you come back from commercial, you say, oh, look what the kids drew at middle school, you know. How do you kind of get into that mindset? I mean, can you take acting classes or something, or is it just something you're born with?
Yes, we're all actors in this business. I mean, no, it's really, I have to tell you, you know, when I report the news, it does run the gamut quite a bit. I mean, as you said, you go from talking about Jay-Z coming to Philly to, you know, 2 kids who had their throats slit in Camden. It's always going to be like that because that's news. But I have to tell you, when you're at the scene, when you're involved in a story like those kids in Camden where a little boy lost his life and a little girl, his sister, is fighting for hers on her birthday, no less, it's very easy to just snap into that mode and get serious because you know how important that information is, but also you know that lives were at stake in that situation. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you have to put on an act and seem very serious. You just are serious because, you know, I don't want to sound crude, but when you see the body bags coming from the house, it's no laughing matter, and it's really not a put on. It's just you learn to get pretty serious pretty quick, and you learn to deal with what you see out there because it's not always pretty, unfortunately.
Well, when I said acting, I didn't mean, you know, that you got to put on some kind of front. But what I'm saying is when you're in these horrible situations, you know, you got to kind of hold yourself together. And, you know, I don't know if I could do it. If I see body bags and a 6-year-old, you know, I'd be on camera, you know, losing my crap, you know?
It's hard. You really do have to, I guess in a way, desensitize yourself from it because it could become really overwhelming. I mean, you know, we're not the police officers. We're not the first responders. We're not seeing exactly what's happening in there, but you are part of it. You are, you know, kind of taking it all in. And when it is a tragic story, I mean, you know, you do kind of have to remove yourself in a sense because if I allowed myself to get, you know, very personal or very emotional, which I have in the past, but if I allowed myself to do that every single day, you know, I wouldn't be able to handle it.
Sure.
So.
Okay. I want to ask a question about myself, to help myself. I've been at this, you know, talk show format for about a month and a half. What, in terms of tips, interviewing tips, what could you give me? Not judging on this interview, just in general.
Yeah. Interviewing tips. I mean, I guess the biggest thing is making the person you're talking to feel really comfortable. Because if that person likes you and, you know, they feel like you're genuinely interested in what they have to say, I feel like it just makes for a better dynamic and a better interview. Gotcha.
Okay. So in your profession, you got to be on your A game all the time. You know, you always be at 100%. You're a human being. You wake up some days, you feel sick, whatever. I mean, is calling in sick even an option, or, you know, what do you do to power through those days where you're not feeling 100%?
I mean, it is tough because, you know, sometimes you are sick and you know they're not going to have, especially for the time that I work, at 2:45, you can't really call someone in oftentimes at that time. So for me, it's just about kind of like plowing through and trying to make it work. I mean, adrenaline helps.
Sure.
Absolutely. And the story definitely, it can kind of push you to be a little bit better than you would have been that day had it not called for it.
Right.
I remember a day where I wasn't feeling well. It was actually when this massive warehouse in Camden caught fire, and unfortunately 2 firefighters lost their lives that day. And I remember waking up that morning. I didn't know the story. I didn't know what I was covering, and I was thinking, another Monday morning or whatever. How am I going to get through this one? And when that happened, I didn't even think about it. You just kind of snap to and make it work because you have to rise to the occasion,
Sure. Okay. Now, my wife, who doesn't give a crap about this blog or anything I do, when I told her that I was interviewing you, she actually did have a question, so I have to ask it. She wanted to know about skincare and, why anchors always look so good on TV. Is there any secrets that you can share for her?
It's all the lighting.
It's all the lighting?
All lighting. all lighting, I think. I mean, I looked at myself in terrible lighting and thought, ugh, looks horrible. But get me in that studio with the light shining bright and I'm good to go.
Okay.
But no, I mean, on a serious note, I try to take care of my skin, try to, use good products. I don't want to give any endorsements, but, there are some companies that give a nice discount.
Sure.
If you're on television, so that helps.
Okay. Of course. So this is going to be your least favorite question, but any bloopers or things happen that you're not always excited to talk about?
Bloopers.
Live TV, come on. I mean, it's got to be some kind of...
It definitely happens. Probably nothing I'd want to I'd want to bring back up,
Sure.
Once it hits the airwaves, I figure, don't ask, don't tell, just let it fly. Because inevitably it's going to happen. You're probably going to, misspeak or say something that sounds a little goofy once it comes out. And when I'm not covering hard news, I do some features that are basically straight live shots. And when you're just talking just off the cuff for 3 minutes, sometimes you surprise yourself in terms of what comes out.
Right.
So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So what do you like best about the Philadelphia market compared to maybe other markets that you're familiar with?
Well, I do love, first of all, it's home. So you can't beat that.
Mm-hmm.
I know so much about this city. I feel like I know it inside and out. So that really helps when I'm trying to do my job. But even above and beyond that, I think like from a news perspective, Philly viewers are just so loyal. Like they're especially when they know you're from here, when they know you're a hometown girl. I feel like people really have supported me from the beginning. And each time I move up in my career, when I went from digital journalist to general assignment, and now when I'm filling in at the anchor desk, people just send me messages. They're like, great job. I've watched you from the start. We love watching you on Channel 3. And really, there's no better feeling than that, than knowing that people are watching and they like what they see.
Absolutely. All right. Now, I know this interview was equally as exciting as the interview you had with Bradley Cooper recently. Have you ever interviewed any musicians, bands, anything like that?
I haven't done a lot of interviews with musicians, sadly enough. Other than this one, Joe.
Oh, okay. Yes.
But usually when a group comes on,
if you want, I can get going.
Right on cue, right?
Right.
No, usually when musicians come in or a group comes in, they will do something in the studio, and usually Yuki, kind of pulls rank there and does.
Okay. So do you remember any specific acts that were in studio, or?
Oh goodness, you really put me on the spot. I have no idea.
I understand. Like you do, it's an everyday thing. It probably leaves your memory.
To be fair, I'm often out of the studio, so I don't always even see or know who comes through, which is kind of unfortunate because sometimes they're really good.
Uh-huh.
Occasionally I get lucky and I run into someone, in the hallway. Actually, Will Ferrell a couple weeks ago, I literally ran into in the
Right.
hallway, and I was very weird. But yeah, so we have a lot of great guests, but I can't think of any music.
That's fine. So, speaking of Will Ferrell and the movie Anchorman and all that,
Yes.
when the credits are rolling and the reporters are talking to each other, what are they saying?
That's a good question. I always feel like, even with my good friends, Erica Von Teal, who is our anchor next to Yuki Washington, she and I are great friends. But it still feels like a put-on at the end of the show when you have to make that little chit-chat.
Right.
I mean, sometimes we really do have actual things to say, like, hey, you want to get breakfast, after the show? What do you think? And Dunkin' Donuts or, salad works, something like that. But other times you really do want to just kind of engage, because it's awkward to just sit there, staring at the camera saying goodbye to everybody. So sometimes it does feel a little fabricated. I'm with you on that.
So it's never something like, hey, Yuki, way to be a little delayed there on camera one, You want to pick it up next time? Nothing like that?
What? It very well could be. We razz each other all the time.
Right.
All the time. Like, if somebody says something awkward on camera, we totally rehash it. We're like a little dysfunctional family. We don't let anything get by.
Right. So as I mentioned before, you were Miss Pennsylvania, and I quickly want to just ask you about that experience.
Okay.
Now, obviously, the pageant life has been good to you both personally and professionally, but, when you see a show like Toddlers and Tiaras on the air, I mean, is that just like a goofy reality show that just, they do crazy things just to get viewers? Or, I guess my question is, like, what is your opinion on a girl that young doing pageants?
I mean, I try to live my life saying to each his own. Because, what would have been good for me may not be good for the next person. I feel like pageants were a small part of my life, in that I was 22, when I won, and I was done by 23. I didn't grow up doing them. It was a stepping stone for me, and it did its job. I made a lot of connections. But, I don't think for me it would have been a great choice, because I loved being a kid. I loved not thinking about what I looked like. I don't even think I realized, like, I had a midsection or, a belly button until I was, like, in high school. These things didn't occur to me. So I think to introduce that level of, in many cases, superficiality to a kid that's so young, I wouldn't want to have been exposed to it, and I probably wouldn't expose my kid to it. But,
Right.
Does it mean that other little girls don't love every minute of them dressing up and going on stage and being in a pageant? No, they might, and maybe that's, just a decision their parent has to make.
Sure.
But, I don't know. I think overall, kids should be kids, and to judge them based on anything at that age, I think is a little weird.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because I have, a newborn daughter, and when she turns 4 and she sees something like that on TV and asks I don't know what the heck I'm going to say. I mean, I know what I'm going to say, but it might not be what she wants to hear. So I don't know. And then one other question, and I remember seeing you like at a party once, and I wanted to ask you this, but I was like, we didn't talk in high school. That would be weird to ask her this. But do you remember the question they asked you in the final round of Miss Pennsylvania?
I did see that on your list. It's not a very fun one. I think they just asked me why I thought I should be Miss Pennsylvania, which is sort of a given.
That's an easy question.
Everybody has their own generic response to that. So yeah, it wasn't a great one. I have to be honest.
All right. Well, I need to know: are you for or against sweet potatoes?
Well, as compared to what? Regular potatoes?
No, not compared to regular potatoes. If the sweet potatoes are being passed around on Thanksgiving Day, are you taking a scoop or are you passing?
Oh, interesting. You mean like yams or sweet potatoes? Am I looking into this entirely too much?
It's fine. This question does require heavy analytics here.
It really does.
Because
I may have to think about that, Joe. I may need more time.
Well, all right, think about it. But every vegetable as a kid that I didn't like, spinach, asparagus. I love it now, but sweet potatoes I cannot stand. And, my wife's all into the sweet potatoes. Supposedly they're more healthy than regular potatoes.
Yeah.
I just tried to eat it for dinner this week, and it tastes horrible to me. And I just don't understand why people like sweet potatoes.
Have you ever had sweet potato fries?
Yes, I have, actually.
They're pretty good. What do you think?
Well, I mean, they're cooked in, like, the oil and,
so basically like anything fried.
Yeah.
I hear you on that. I think I'd go for it. I think I'd eat the sweet potatoes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're alone in that one. I think they're pretty yummy. But if I had to compare it to Yukon Gold potatoes, with heavy butter, I'd absolutely pick that over the sweet potato.
Oh, I don't want to talk about butter. Butter is a bad subject matter.
Or bacon.
Well, all right, I'll expose this here. I have what's called a butter phobia. It's the only thing that exactly that look. Since I swear to you, I can remember being in a height chair and like my mom trying to give me toast with butter on it and refusing it. I don't know. Butter just completely grosses me out, and all my friends make fun of me for it. All my colleagues make fun of me for it.
That's very odd.
It is very odd. I don't like the smell of it. I don't like the look of it. When it's near me at the table, I need to push it to the other side of the table.
So let me ask you this: are you afraid of the movie theater then, with all that buttery popcorn goodness?
Well, I asked the movie theater with popcorn with no butter on it, but here's the thing.
But then you have to smell it the whole time.
I know.
It's like intoxicating.
Nah, well, it smells like a movie theater. It's not really the same as just pure raw butter, but I'm kind of a hypocrite in a way, because if you were to make macaroni and cheese or something and use butter in that, and I ate it without knowing there was butter, I'd be just fine. But as soon as you told me there was butter in it, I dropped the fork. It's like 70% psychological.
I feel like that really rules out a lot of options for you.
Well, not really with like cookies and stuff. If it's cooked in, it's fine. But if I see like the actual butter, then I have a problem with it.
Very weird.
No problem talking about it. So, what was the first? What was the first CD you've ever owned as a kid?
That I had to think about. It was Hootie and the Blowfish.
Okay.
Cracked Rear View. And I think I ordered it off of one of those, you pay 1 cent and then you get 10 CDs, but then your parents inevitably, get you into trouble because they send the bill months after. And
right.
Paid. Yeah, so it was Hootie and the Blowfish, and then I think the second one was the Rembrandts. Do you remember the Friends?
Yes. And I remember in the Friends episode they went to the Hootie and the Blowfish concert, so maybe subliminally they were selling you all this stuff here.
It all comes together, subliminal messages. It worked for me, so what can I say?
See, Hootie and the Blowfish is a band where, at the time, I think, because of the music I listened to, I pretended not to like them,
Oh, really?
And now, when it comes...
you were too cool for it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Way too cool for it.
I was only want to be with you.
Yeah. Well, I worried what people thought of my musical taste, But now when it comes on the radio, it totally takes me back to that time, and, totally, I'm all about Hootie now.
I'm glad to hear
it. What was the best concert you've ever been to?
Best concert. Well, I went to Billy Joel and Elton John at the Link, and that was pretty amazing. I am a huge fan of Elton John, and Billy Joel's not bad either. So I'd probably say that one.
That's a good one. All right, now we do a couple segments here on JoeyRitter.com. All right, this one is called "Turn It Up or Turn It Off." All right, so I'm simply going to name you 5 songs, and I don't have a Hootie and the Blowfish song on here, but 5 songs, and you tell me if you turn it off or turn it up. All right? Okay. First one is "Life is a Highway."
Oh, I thought you were going to play it.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't have...
I would turn it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and I also should mention that if I don't agree with your answer, I might start arguing with you, but I agree with that one. Second one is "Firework" by Katy Perry.
Yeah, I mean, it may be corny, but every time it gets me going, especially on a dance floor. For me, it's more of a dancing song than it is a singing in your car song.
That's become a wedding song in the way that when the chorus comes up, everybody kind of jumps.
Everybody gets into it. It's hard. I mean, it's catchy. So yeah, I definitely turn it up.
Great. All right, Hotel California, Eagles.
Up.
Way up. Classic. All right. It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. REM.
Up.
Okay.
Those are all great songs. You're not throwing out any losers here.
I got another one for you. All right, last one is Raining Blood by Slayer.
I don't know that song.
All right.
So I'd have to hear it in order to make that decision.
I put that in there on purpose. All right, Nicole. Now, the last thing I have for you is this thing called the Book of Questions, all right?
Okay.
There's some pretty dark questions in here. I'm just going to forewarn you. There's 200 questions. I would like you to pick a number between 1 and 200, and I will ask you the corresponding question.
Lucky number 13.
13. Good choice. All right. Oh, you're getting off easy. What would constitute a perfect evening for you?
Oh. Okay, again, this may make me sound super boring, but because I get up so early, there's nothing like a 5 o'clock dinner. So reservations at 5, don't have to worry about it. You have your pick of, any restaurant in the city. Then a nice walk home. Like, it's great to go to a neighborhood place where you don't have to pull out your car. If you want to go to South Philly and get a water ice at John's, you have that option. And then you get home nice and early, and, my husband and I either see a movie at the Ritz or pay for one on demand.
Awesome.
That's the best.
You got off very easy, because there's some questions in there that are like, if you sacrifice the life of a 10-year-old if it meant ending world hunger type questions.
Oh, goodness, I think
All right, Nicole.
Well, I'm lucky on that.
I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know how busy you are, and hopefully you had fun. And you are Nicole_Brewer on Twitter, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, and hopefully talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
All right.